This is David Goodwin, the Assistant Director at the Fordham University Center on Religion and Culture. Many thanks for joining us for the latest episode of our new series, CRC Chats. Today we'll be joined by Father Jim McDermott. Jim is a master of many trades. He is a screenwriter, a journalist, and an ordained Jesuit priest. Jim and the CRC will be embarking upon a new collaboration, which we're calling Daydreaming with St. Ignatius and Your Favorite TV Show. In this series, we'll be exploring a new, interesting, and we think fun approach to spiritual reflection, which Jim is developing. Many thanks to Jim for joining us today.
David, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So we're calling the series Daydreaming with St. Ignatius and Your Favorite TV Show. And you've called St. Ignatius a daydreamer. What do you mean by that?
Well, people have lots of ways of thinking about Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuits. And for me, if you didn't remember anything else about him, the most important thing to remember, I think, is that he was a daydreamer. When in his early life, he wanted to be a knight. He was part of a court, and his great fantasy was to be a great knight, like fighting the great battles, wooing the lady in the tower, things like that. And then at a battle at Pamplona, he was terribly injured. His leg was very badly injured, and he had to spend a number of months just convalescing, like trapped in a room, kind of like we are. Mm-hmm. And in that time, he had almost nothing to read. He was at the family home, and they had the lives of the saints and the Bible. Mm-hmm. So what he found himself doing was some of the time he'd just be laying there daydreaming about being a knight, this thing that he's long wanted. And sometimes he'd be reading, scripture or the lives of the saints. And then he would find himself daydreaming about that, being the next St. Francis or St. Dominic. And because he was there for a long time, he began to notice patterns. And the main pattern was when he daydreamed about being a knight, while it was fantastic, like Marvel Avengers, 15th century style, it didn't last. Like the joy of it kind of petered out pretty soon after he was done. But when, of all things, he daydreamed about being a saint, about like being like Francis, it just buoyed him up. He just felt alive. And as a result of that crazy process, which he didn't know he was doing while he was doing it, it came to him over the period of time of daydreaming. He decided, I guess I shouldn't be a knight. Like, it seems like what actually fills me up more is not fighting the great battles, but being like St. Francis, being, someone for others, being someone who lives a simple, poor life. So daydreaming became the way that he figured out what to do with his life.
And what we're trying to do with this series is talk about a new way to embark upon spiritual reflection, or the Ignatian spiritual exercises. And for those who aren't aware of the exercises or the examen, what is it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it's I think when people hear about it, it's usually the spiritual exercises are described as this 30-day silent retreat. And I think it's like, okay, I'm checked out. Like, I can't do that. That sounds crazy, right? But basically what the exercises are is a series of things that Ignatius calls contemplations that are each a daydream. So basically it's sort of like, let's daydream through the life of Jesus. We'll start with his birth, and we'll go all the way through the crucifixion and the resurrection. And what Ignatius does is it's called, like I said, a contemplation, it's just like a scene to imagine in your head, to daydream about. So like, let's go to the Nativity. And he sort of spells out like imagine what it looked like in that manger, in that barn. Imagine what were the smells, what were the sounds, right? And just like try to put yourself in that scene. Just like you would, like when you go to the movies in a way, like just like be there in that place and watch it play out in whatever way your mind wants to go. So you might be, if you're really daydreaming, crazy stuff might happen that aren't in the script, like maybe there's an elephant at the Nativity, like, oh, I don't remember reading that. or, or maybe you feel like you want to be, instead of watching it, you want to be Joseph in the scene. You want to like have his point of view on what's going on. And Ignatius's thought was like, whatever, you gotta trust the daydreaming process. So whatever your instincts tell you to do, just do that. And a lot of times it might just be as simple as like, really just sitting there watching it play out. And then the key is to give yourself to that, and then just pay attention to what it does inside of you. So, where was my attention drawn? Like what moment in the scene, or what character in the scene? Like who made me feel something strongly? It could be positive or it could be negative, but where were my feelings, my affect really engaged? And Ignatius's thought, coming from his own experience of being stuck in that bed, is that if you do this over a period of time, you start to notice patterns. And those patterns are they're like breadcrumbs that God leaves for us to try to help us understand like what's most important in our lives, or what are our deepest desires, right? So you do this over a period of time, and that's what the spiritual exercises are, is that sort of period of time. And you start to notice like what you most want or what you most struggle with. And that's such important material for all of us, no matter what our lives are, to just try to figure out like what's the next thing? What's the next thing I want to try, or what's the obstacle in my way? So yeah, the spiritual exercises are basically a process of daydreaming about God and the life of God, and about our own deepest desires.
Sounds very vivid and full of images, almost cinematic, which I think leads to the next question about this new format or new approach to the spiritual exercises which you're developing, involving television and watching TV. Can you share that with us?
Sure. Yeah, sure. This is so like, first of all, like what I just described, those spiritual exercises, one of the challenges of it is not all of us imagine in the same way. Like I'm not very good at sort of picturing scenes. Sometimes they come to life, sometimes they don't. But I work as well a little bit as a screenwriter, and it kind of hit me. People would ask me like, why are you a priest that's a screenwriter? Like, how does that work? And I think, I'm not sure entirely. I just know that this is kind of one of my own deepest desires. But kind of chewing on that question, what kind of came to me was, I think watching television is a lot like what Ignatius is talking about with this idea of contemplation or daydream prayers. Because what's a TV show? It's literally like a daydream presented before us, where it's the same process. We sit there, we watch it, and our hearts are moved. People will laugh about like, you watch a television show and you start crying or things like that, or a movie same way. You just think, oh God, these are fictional characters. But Ignatius would say, don't discount that. That's important. That tells you something important is going on there. So my thought is, what if we actually, instead of that just passively happening, what if we like dug into that? So for instance, like we're all trapped inside. A lot of what I think a lot of us are doing to cope is streaming television shows, either like sitcoms, dramas, documentaries, whatever. And so like, what if, like I'll tell you, I'm watching The Wire. I'm rewatching that old HBO show, not a religious show at all, right? But it doesn't matter, because we believe God is working in our lives, right? It's not just in when we go to church. It's not just in the explicit religious stuff. So I'm watching The Wire. I watched an episode last night, and the thing that really struck me, the moment where my heart was like really grabbed, is this episode. It focused on one of the younger characters. It's actually Michael B. Jordan as a very young kid, like probably 12 or 13. And it's this, he's like a street level drug pusher working for like these much more powerful people. But in this particular episode, at the beginning, we see his actual life, and he's basically taking care of like 7 or 8 homeless kids, or kids whose parents are probably hooked on crack, right? And wow, in the whole episode, and it was a great episode, that was the moment that I felt something. So I think even if it's a sitcom, there are moments like that, either characters or events where suddenly they grab us. So then the question is, it's as simple as like at the end of an episode like that saying, okay, where was my Lord, if you want, where was my heart moved? And then just kind of chewing on that. Like maybe there's some immediate insight. Like for instance, for me, I love working with kids, and I'm passionate about particularly kids in more difficult situations. So in a sense, like it's like, oh yeah, that's maybe grist for my mill in terms of the work that I do. Or maybe it's like, maybe I don't know why I felt so strongly. And that's fine too. This isn't therapy, right? The gift is to enjoy the show first and foremost. And sometimes if there is a pattern, it emerges over time. It doesn't emerge like just watching this episode. But my thought was, if you're streaming a show right now, and I think we all are, at least one, or a dozen, like what would it be like after each episode to just take a minute and sit with, like, let the show kind of settle in us and sort of say, like, to ourselves, okay, which character am I most engaged with, that I either love or that I hate? And then maybe I'm going to pay attention to that character the next episode and the next. Or it could be an event like I just described, like what was the moment in this episode that I most felt something? And then to just sit with those feelings and see if, I don't know, maybe at worst, it's just like a little further moment of nourishment, of like enjoying this episode. And that would be a great thing in itself. As someone who tries to write TV, like that's what we want, is just for you to have that. But maybe there's more. Maybe we'll find little breadcrumbs that God is, putting in our way to lead us farther on the journey of our lives.
That sounds like a really wonderful and compelling model for spiritual reflection, especially as you said, we're all hunkered down right now. We're all watching television and movies. So what I'm hoping is for the next episode of Daydreaming with St. Ignatius and your favorite TV show, that you and I could walk through an episode.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, great. So for everyone watching, episode 2 will be Jim and I talking about and reflecting upon a TV show.
Maybe we can pick one ahead of time and post it so people, if they want to watch it too, they could.
Oh, that's a great idea. So what we'll do is we will sometime this week or next week, we will post the episode that we're watching once Jim and I have a chance to talk about it. And then next week, Jim and I will sit down and conduct the next episode of CRC Chats.
Cool. That sounds great.
Thanks again, Jim, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me.